Hello, good evening, good morning, or good afternoon. Welcome to join us for the CIB President Seminar Series. This CIB President Series was started about 3 years ago by the current immediate past president of CIB, Mark Hastak from Purdue University. In the past 3 years, it has been a great success for this seminar series to be spread out all over the world in our community. So today, as a new term of the CIB board and as the new president of CIB, I'm delighted to announce the continuation of the seminar series. So today is the first lecture delivered by Professor Hemanta Doloi from the University of Melbourne. Professor Doloi is currently an associate professor in the construction management discipline and the director of the Smart Village Research Program at the Faculty of Architecture, Building and Planning of the University of Melbourne. He is also the founding chair of the International Conference on Smart Villages and Rural Development, founding convener of the Global Seminar Series on Smart Villages, and the mission advocate of the Sustainable Planet Initiative. Dr. Doloi is currently the lead coordinator of the CIB Commission W107, Construction in Developing Countries. This working commission is one of the long-lasting and very important CIB commissions, where he is looking at integrating his smart villages research into the construction practices in the developing countries, especially in the rural construction context. A book will be published very soon on the same topic. So please pay attention to Mr. Hemanta Doloi's work. Now, I'm very pleased to invite Professor Doloi to start his lecture. Hemanta, please.
Yep. Thank you. I'll share my slides. Thank you, Professor Dongping Feng, for your great introduction. Good afternoon, colleagues, friends, distinguished members of CIB community. It's a privilege to open the first seminar under the leadership of our new president, Professor Dongping Feng. As coordinator of CIBW 107, Construction in Developing Countries, I am honored to share a theme that lies in the intersection of construction, sustainability, and humanity, smart villages and their significance in climate positive development. Today, I'll take you on a journey from the global imbalance between the urban and rural systems to the transformative power of rural regeneration and how smart villages can help rebalancing our planet's carbon ledger. But first of all, why smart villages? So let's begin with a simple observation. About 60% of the world's population lives in cities, which account for nearly 47% of the global CO2 emission, largely from our construction and related industries. Meanwhile, the remaining 40% who lives in the rural settings, mostly in the developing countries, maintain the lifestyles they are largely carbon neutral or even carbon negative. So this golden ratio or the golden balance between the urban and rural, between the cities and the villages, is a natural equilibrium that must be maintained and preserved, not to erase through the unchecked urbanization. This is my kind of a hypothesis here, that the urban and rural balance have to be struck and they have to be maintained and preserved. And I'll show you through my presentation how this is important and whether this is correct or not. Instead of drawing people from villages into the carbon intensive cities, the construction industry should empower the rural communities where they are through sustainable housing, clean energy, and local livelihoods. This is the essence of the Smart Villages vision. So, why the Smart Villages research? At the University of Melbourne, our Smart Villages research program aimed at empowering the 40% rural population to become actively contribute to the climate positive future. So our framework rests on three simple truths. Urban areas are overdeveloped and emission heavy. Rural areas are under supported yet ecologically very rich. And the 60-40 urban rural balance, which is today the ratio, must be maintained for our planetary balance. And Smart Villages research connects all the three dots through the data-driven community-led development. So I will show you how the community we can bring from the village level to the center of our decision making, so that they not only aspire to develop in rural but also contribute as a counter to all the the activities that we do in the cities that leads to the CO2 emission heavily. So I, being an Indian person of Indian origin, have a strong connection in India, and that's why I started this work in India. So India actually serves as a global test bed because of a sheer volume of 1.66 billion people resides in that country, and out of that, about 800 million people are in the rural settings, living across 730,000 villages. This is not a challenge, but this is an opportunity for transformation. So through our Smart Villages data platform, which we have developed as part of the proof of concept, which I'll show you a bit later, we have done about 2,700 household survey using the Smart app and partnering with some of the leading institutions like IIT Delhi, IIT Madras, IIT Guwahati, IIT Roorkee. We have proved that the rural infrastructure, if designed intelligently, can offset urban emissions while improving livelihoods. I will show some of this research with some examples later. But then, talking about India to start with, then I am now contemplating saying that actually the whole of developing countries in the world, the global south we call, is our opportunity here. So around 90% global rural population lives in two continents alone, Asian continent and the African continent. In fact, 37% of the rural people lives just across 47 countries, meaning the global climate solutions must begin where most of the humanity still resides. Yet, construction in developing countries is often dismissed as a low standard, informal, unimportant sector. This misconception ignores the rich vernacular knowledge and the ecological logic, which could be at the core of the new construction practice called rural construction management. So that term is not quite exist today. Through the CIB W107, construction in developing countries, we are aspiring to revitalize that narrative. positioning developing countries as a laboratories for climate positive innovation and development. For instance, when bamboo replaces steel, when thatch replaces concrete, when the soils and the forest act as a carbon sink, rural construction does not just sustain the life, but it regenerates the planet. Now, if you see the global population here, as I said, it is just confined to a few countries, which I actually mentioned earlier, and this is the data for that. Now, one of the trends that we are all very much aware of, the global urbanization, the rapid urbanization of the rural people into the city centers. So, as this graph shows, actually very quickly we are losing that balance of 40-60. So, somewhere about maybe 2020 to 2024, the world had a balance of about 60% urban people and 40% rural people. So that balance was pretty much there. But today, the World Bank is predicting, and the UN, that by 20, the way the urbanization is happening today, by 2050, the urban population will be 68%, leaving only 32% in the rural pockets. And that golden ratio that we are talking about here is going to be missed if we do not act now. So urbanization is rising fastest in Asia and Africa, often driven by poverty reduction policies that equate progress with the urban migration. Yet, this trajectory risks erasing the very ecological base that sustains us. We must act before the balance is lost. As you can see, so our urbanization rate from the rural is highest in Asia and African continent. Then if you see here, so as I said, the current urbanization program is basically supported by the poverty eradication programs of those developing countries. As we can witness that 64% of the world's extremely poor people lives across these 5 countries, and these countries have got the massive national programs of eradicating the poverty, and only one template that they all know or they are very much used to is to urbanize rural people as soon as possible using brick and mortar development so that they can all come to the cities and become modern. So that is a myth, and that myth is actually creating a trouble to our sustained to our unsustained planet. So, for example, if we just look at what rurals are offering to us, how do they differ from the urban? Just a few examples. So, if you look at rural landscapes and the green cover, trees, farms, and soil continuously absorb carbon. Mixed forest sequester about 3.5 tons of CO2 per hectare per year. Agroforestry about 2 tons CO2 per hectare per year. And these are the data that I'm borrowing from other published research. And this silent service keeps the planet breathing. So if you look at the housing typology, traditional timber and bamboo homes store carbon, about 1 ton per cubic meter of wood. Bamboo structures can even be net negative, unlike cement and fired bricks, major carbon emitters. Agriculture and livelihoods. By adopting low input agronomy, reducing synthetic fertilizers, and pairing crops with trees, farming systems can move forward net zero emissions. And if you look at the mobility between villagers and the urbanites, in village, life happens on foot or bicycle. Bicycle emits just 16 to 50 grams of CO2 per kilometer versus 179 grams per car. Rural simplicity, therefore, is not a backwardness, but it's a climate wisdom. That's what we need to preserve and we need to maintain. So, if you look at a summary of the carbon footprint between rural and urban, this is a research that was published in 2022, very clearly shows that across the household, travel, and lifestyle, the three verticals. So rural has got the very little carbon footprint, and urban is just quadruple. So I think that is the trend that we are quite used to, and we are following it without even knowing that the rural is our heavy lifters for the planet. In fact, in this research, they have shown that 100 timber houses stored about 900 tons of CO2, and 200 hectares of agroforestry removed about 30 tons of CO2 annually, offsetting an entire urban neighborhood. That's the rural advantage in numbers. Then we know all this. Perhaps this is not a rocket science, what I mentioned so far. But what is very disturbing here, that if you look at the construction and development in the context of construction, developing countries, there is a misunderstanding or deliberations. We do not know exactly, but I'll just give you some examples. If you look at the construction practice in India, for example, India is an example only because I have had some great connections with India and I was working with India, so I have got access to many of their practices in the rural settings. So this is a national program, government housing program called Housing for All. Uh, Using this particular program, they were trying to uplift the rural living by often replicating the urban templates. The result is brick and mortar houses are being built, ignoring the local needs and failing the community expectations. So, in fact, this particular program have worked out has worked out different housing typologies across the country, and they have given quite a many different templates. There are, as you can see, very in a fine text. There are five different zones where they are in one province, one state where I come from originally. And they said they think that these five different zones and five different housing typology will cover most of the states in terms of the rural housing program. And maybe in the paper they were right, but when they have actually built those houses in the rural settings, so these are the houses that resulted in the rural settings out of those programs. And you can see these houses are not any houses of any kind. There is no character to any ruralism, but these are simply brick and mortar houses thrown away by those programs free of cost to the villagers. And these villagers are not, by using these houses, they are never changing their lifestyle. They are never modernizing themselves. They are never empowering themselves, but rather they are actually going backward by losing their vernacular character of the villages and their vernacular character of their own homes. So these are the houses that is being built out of that program. So now, what is missing here, and what is the problem here, rather, that community has not been taken on board in designing and delivering and in creating those homes. So that is where the Smart Villages program that we initiated tried to really address some of those issues across the housing verticals. So one of my PhD students studied four housing typologies in the state of Assam in India, and she found that these are the four different tribal communities up in the mountain, and these houses, they look exactly similar. So they are all from bamboo and thatch and local materials, and you can see a very ordinary kind of houses that people live in there. But when we actually communicated with the community and tried to understand basically what these houses are and what it means to them, so we found that the spatial use and the cultural meaning of every single space within these houses, including the rooms and all, are all different from one community to the other. In one village, for example, so this is where basically we looked at basically how they look at various spaces in various houses, and these are some PhD work, and then papers were published, thesis was published. I will not go into details, but we found essentially that every single community perceived their space within the houses quite differently, even though the houses look similar. So that kind of knowledge is very, very important for designing the houses for the rural community, and then delivering that housing program through the rural construction management program. So that those things are at this moment in existence, non-existent. So another example here is in one village in Assam itself, a traditional weaving machine defines both economy and identity of that particular village. So this particular weaving machine is a homemade looms built from natural material, and such local skills drive jobs, culture, and zero carbon livelihoods. Exactly the value embedded in our UN Sustainable Development Goals. And you wouldn't believe that this kind of ordinary weaving machine, homemade weaving machine, can produce some of the very very high end products of the traditional clothing. And you can see that these are the traditional silk clothing for Assamese community. It's a very cultural icon actually. Any lady anywhere in the world wears these clothes, you can identify that particular lady belongs to that particular region, because this is such a unique kind of clothing, and they sell in the market at a very high price. So one pair of this we call sari, but actually India is not sari. We have got a different name for that. It's called mekhela sadar. So and one pair of these could cost about $500 to $2,000 in the marketplace, and then people do buy it. And even in during the wedding of a bride, this particular one pair at least is given as a culture and prestigious value adding item in that particular function. So this is such a unique kind of product available in that place, and people are making quite a lot of money out of this kind of products. So I think these are very important when we design the housing for the rural communities. And how do they empower, how do they create jobs, how can they earn increase their earning, and how do they empower over time. So these are very important, and these are the local cultures and local skills we need to all harness together in order to really define and design the houses for that particular community. So that's what I am trying to highlight here. So, in fact, if we look at, in fact, our last CIB World Congress, the theme was about the Sustainable Development Goals. And if you look at basically Sustainable Development Goals as a template, yeah, is there. But what is missing today is that when you talk about housing construction or infrastructure construction as those verticals, we somehow miss how that kind of infrastructure, the built environment in the rural settings, can potentially harness across all the 17 goals, and making sure that they are all integrated together and holistically developed. So that is not something that we are seeing that many examples all the time. At least not recorded examples are widely published. So what we are then contemplating here is that when it comes to the rural development through the Smart Villages program, it is not about simply housing or the infrastructure, but this is about actually developing the entire community through the rural built environment, nature based vernacular knowledge, and things like that, but ensuring that the sustainable development goals are holistically developed in a very context specific manner. So one particular community's sustainable development goals and their indicators not necessarily to be same as the other communities somewhere. So it is very important that how we can look contextually develop the community using this template that has given to us by UN, and use that to empower the communities from the bottom up. And that is where that holistic development is important, and that is where that context specific localized planning is important, and smart villages precisely is trying to do that. So the smart village is a balancing force towards the global sustainability. If you look at the emission alone, so housing, energy, transport, agriculture, land sequestration, they are all part of the same equation. So the smart villages are not about replicating the cities, they are about redefining the rural development models for maintaining the nature-based vernacular lifestyle of the rural communities for self-sustaining and climate-positive living. So the smart village is not a competing force against urban. Smart village is a complementary balance where we can clearly identify the purpose-based functions of each of the community. For example, rural areas provide the carbon sinks, food and culture, and the urban areas could provide the technological innovation, financial hub, act as a financial hub or technological hub, and contribute to the national GDP. So maybe some of the items from the rural can contribute to the national GDP, but when it comes to the national GDP and their measurements, yes, city counts the most. So I think when a particular city has got a or urban community has a particular purpose, and same as the rural community as well. And if we can actually look at both the complementarity of the communities, we can easily appreciate the symbiosis loop of resilience of the humanity as a whole. So while the global institutions such as UN mobilize the climate finance, for example, the true climate action begins at the grassroots level by empowering the rural communities from the bottom up. That's exactly what the smart village research seeks to achieve. So essentially, you can see that the UN's the climate conference every year has a very strong negotiation with the leaders of the global south from the Western world about money, about climate fund. And now, as you know, last year in Baku, UN 29, they had agreed up to 300 billion US dollars per annum to be spent by the developing countries on the climate programs. But this year, I think this conference is COP 30 is happening in Brazil. Who knows what is the negotiation like? But then, what the global south leaders are talking at this point in time, that no, this 300 billion is too little, too late. They need 1.3 trillion dollars rather. Now, question here is that even though that sort of money is available, but what are the programs? But global south, as I have clearly mentioned, the rural people, actually most of the rural people live in global south. But do you ever consider that the rural empowerment is the way to go? I think that is a missing link at this moment, and that is what the smart villages program is very, very important. So essentially what you can see, I have spoken to quite a few different governments across the developing countries to see basically how they are trying to leverage the climate fund from this. And none of this government has ever come up with a solid plan, or many of them even do not know that this funding is there, and they can leverage their climate programs through this funding. There's no such thing. So essentially what will happen, even this money is available, um, so they will end up building the climate resilient infrastructure, which will be brick and mortar. So that is not something going to really help us sustaining our planet. So what we need here is the nature based vernacular kind of lifestyle that this 40% people can live and lead, so that the remaining 60% people can survive. So as I said, this is not a competing requirement. It's a complementary requirement. And if you look at here, the bottom scale on the right hand side, so there is a clear statistics by the International Energy Agency that one New York Singapore flight is being countered by 1,000 African villages. So today, how many of our all the urban people are having the luxury of traveling by air. But then, who are our counters in order to sustain the planet? Are those villagers. So this scale is very, very important to appreciate and understand. That is where we can survive as a humanity. So I'll show you quickly a small video about some of the work that we have done. So as you can see, this is the place of Assam where that yellow dot is. And we started doing some basic work, collecting some data using app-based using app-based tool, and then empowering some villagers to go out and then collect the data from the villagers. And then as you can see, this is a small video. So we have collected about 2,700 household data, demographic data as well as house data, and everything is basically zero referenced and put into our smart data platform. And this data platform basically recites, archives all the information that we need at the house level or the village level or the district level. And then once we have that information there, it is much easier to understand basically who lives where, what people have, what people need, how we can actually support people in terms of their education, in terms of their household need, in terms of their infrastructure need, and so on and so forth. So this is nothing but simple data platform in that particular community, a very thorough data platform rather. And with that, we can actually work on very many different analytics to be able to draw the need-based programs for that community. And an idea is that if we have this, and if we can somehow align the government programs and see basically how closely are they matched or mismatched, so that our government public funding programs could be potentially aligned to the need of the community. So at this moment, there are lots of mismatches. And as I've shown the housing program there, I think this is because always the governments are working on the top-down approach rather than the bottom-up approach, not taking the community on board in the decision-making process. So, and this is because, as I said, that construction for the rural communities never existed as a literature, as a practice, and they do not have time. They are working against the time. So, and all the numbers are important every year. How many houses are being built? These are the KPIs for many of the government officers. So that is where basically things are going at this moment. So at the end of the day, what is happening there, by doing that kind of program, by not having connected with the communities at the grassroots level, we are actually damaging our, not only our ecology and environment, but also reducing the community's ability to be able to empower themselves with the nature-based vernacular knowledge. So that is a major trend at this moment, and this is where I think this particular research is very, very important. So this particular is a campaign kind of brochure here, talking about a 60-40 balance in the world level. But if you look at the left bottom, that is from the India, how it can be, how we can actually in India can be one of the transformative force in terms of the sheer volume of people, 1.6 billion, and good 800 million people are living in the rural pockets. So those people, without knowingly or deliberately, are coming to the city centers and making our cities, clog cities, more clogging. They are coming with an idea, hypothetical idea, that if they go to the city, they become sophisticated, they become economically more empowered, and they can make money and they can sell everything back in their rural, and then somehow migrate to the urban, and they become a sophisticated people. So they look up to the communities in the urban as if like they are the role models. And vice versa is also true, that the urban communities are also looking down to the rural communities at this moment in terms of their poor and unimportant group of people. That complementarity has not been sinking in. So that hasn't been sunk in. So we had some awareness naturally during the pandemic time. So many of the densely populated cities people had the experience of going to the rural areas and then survive through the pandemic, right? So people did understand that rural communities are important, but soon people forgotten. And again, that that division is always very much existed. So I think with this, the role of CIB and W107 is a very important one. So CIB's leadership is crucial. CIB Working Commission 107, Construction Developing Countries, has for decades championed equitable, sustainable construction for Global South. By integrating the smart villages research into this platform, I think we can elevate our global discourse, connecting academic research, industry practice, and the policy transformation very, very well. Our collective goal is very simple but profound: to ensure that 40% of humanity living in villages is supported, not neglected, in the global race towards decarbonization. To explore the opportunities, conduct research, and establish a parallel body of knowledge for developing countries across all facets of the developments with context-based implementation of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So this is pretty much what we can do from the CIB and especially from W107. So we are trying to address the research and research-led awareness through very many different avenues. One of the conferences that Professor Dongping Fan also mentioned in the introduction is called COSBIRD, International Conference on Smart Village and Rural Development. I founded that in 2018 with a major research funding from the government of India. And since then, I thought only I'll do one or 2 years of that conference and see what happens. But then that conference actually has established today as a series of annual event. We do have an ISSN number at this stage, and soon we'll be getting that conference to be indexed in Scopus. So that's the plan. So this conference is going on. So what we started this conference initially, that this conference was happening in India all the year before the pandemic, 2018, 19, 20, and so on. But then during pandemic, we started doing the hybrid conference, and now that conference becomes a hybrid conference all the time. So what we are doing, we take the conference to some of the rural partners. This year, we are going to down south in India, connecting with one of the private institutions. They will be our ground partner, but we'll be still doing hybrid. So we do connect people from around the world, researchers and so on. But the ground people will be still from those pockets where they can see the value and we can generate the awareness. That's the whole idea. So conference always goes to the rural, but it connects to the global. So that's how we are doing the conference. So very quickly, I'm done. We have also produced quite a few literature over a very short period of time. So 3 books have been written on this new topic. Very first one was 2019. We defined the infrastructure in a smart villages model, followed by one of the verticals we took as housing, and defined how the affordability and affordable housing for the smart villages can be designed. And finally, the last very recent book was Infrastructure for Smart Villages, again, another vertical that I have explained a bit more in detail in that book. Then, when very interestingly and coincidentally, Professor Mohan Kumar Swamy, the editor-in-chief of BPM Journal, has negotiated with scientific publisher in Singapore to write a book series, and the book series is on domain-specific bodies of knowledge in project management, mainly looking at developing countries. And we have been given 2 books to write in that series, and 1 book is now in the press at the moment, that is called Smart Villages, Sustainable Development and Climate Positive Future. We have had 21 chapters and very big book. I'm glad that I was able to edit with 2 very eminent researchers, Professor Kaushik Varghese from IIT Madras and Professor George Ofori from London South Bank University. Then the second book is also in the on the pipeline as well. And then we also had a special issue in that BPM journal on the same topic few years ago. And then, most importantly, last slide, COSBART conference. This year it is happening in December. Actually, not 8 and 9. It is a wrong date. It is happening on the 15th and the 16th. So following week, Monday, Tuesday. And there's a link here, webinar link. By all means, we appreciate everybody to come along and either be the audience or contribute, or whatever ways they can contribute. But we like to have more people into this COSBART conference in the years to come. Then, as I said, the last day of the COSBART conference, 15th and 16th December is the COSBART conference. Then 17th Tuesday will be, not Tuesday, Wednesday, will be our joint symposium of the Construction in Developing Countries W107, along with Social Values in the Built Environment TG127. And this particular conference symposium only for 5 hours, hybrid. Again, we have got about 10 speakers, where Professor Fang is also one of the speakers as well, being the new CIB president. So we very much welcome everybody to come along, and this is the QR code. Again, we will campaign this through our social outlet as well. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Hemanta. It's an excellent lecture. And the smart village is also a very, very important topic. I think in many countries, including China. So in China, we have an initiative for so-called beauty villages. The beauty is a more broader concept rather than beauty itself. It means a nice, wonderful village. I think smart is one of the part of its concept. So I think this is a very good topic and with great significance. I think in the maybe you get to consider to collaborate with the Chinese professors to host one of your conference here in China.
Thank you. That's a
So
great suggestion, sir.
so now I would like to open the floor to our participants and for questions. Any questions, please?
No questions. Oh, no, there is
I
Mark.
noticed, no. I noticed that our immediate past president, Professor
Yeah,
Mark Hastak,
yes.
Mark is also the initiator of this CIB President's seminar series. It's from him. So, Mark, please.
Thanks, Professor and thanks, Hemanta. Excellent presentation. Enjoyed listening to your thoughts on smart villages. I had a question, more philosophical than to your presentation, and that being, uh, you know, you mentioned about maintaining the sustainable environment of the villages, but at the same time, bringing technology to the villages so that people feel comfortable having the city amenities in some way while living in a sustainable environment of a village with more clean air, et cetera, et cetera. My question is that, how do you balance modernization and the rural nature of a village without bringing it too much closer to what we call as the city environment? Uh,
Yeah, it's a great question, Mark, and I think that is a question that I have heard from many people as well. So this is a great, in fact, including the Chief Secretary of the State Government of Assam, recently asked me the same question. So now I would simply think that we are not necessarily bringing the villagers into the city, closer to the city or city living at all. So villagers are pretty much going to living as villagers. But question here is that how can you sell that idea? How can you tell the villagers? Because first of all, people like us going from the cities are trying to tell them, look, villagers, you stay in the villages, you'll be fine. That is not something that they are going to accept it very easily. So what then we are looking at here is more like a bottom up. So you start with the some of the parameters like income generation and job creations, for example. Can we then have the jobs in their own settings without having to come to the cities? So can the villagers, from anybody from all sector of the community, can have something to do as an opportunity to make money in the villages itself? That's the first thing, right? So then that means we have to somehow bring the economy from the city to the village. So one of the ways of bringing the economies from city to the village is to get the tourists perhaps start appreciating the villagers and their lifestyles, and whatever the villagers are to offer, those things have to be somehow highlighted to a significance that the city people can come enjoy and pay the price. So I think that way we need to really make those people ready to accept the city tourist to come, and not only city tourist in local settings, but also could be international tourist as well. So what I was saying to some people in India, India has got 730,000 villages. But why Indian map does not have 730,000 dots today? If every single dot represents a village, and a person living in New York can see a particular dot ticked, and then he or she knows that this is a great place, great way to go there. Security and safety is not a problem. Food is enormous. Food is incredible, and we can experience these things we have never experienced anywhere in the life. So they can go all the way, bring the tourist dollar, dump into that villagers, and then they can have the best of the best experience. But we have to ensure that these people are safe. So villagers will have to be trained in order to maintain the hygienity, maintain the safety and security, so that they are ready for that kind of economic benefit. So in a way, I think this is two way. So I think the villagers will be villagers. They will have something to offer in a village settings completely unique from the cities, but the cities will then appreciate and bring the economy back to them. So I think that sort of the capacity we have to build, rather than simply thinking that today they're thinking that city people are good and we are bad, because of they look up to the city people and they can see that one city living person can afford anything, but the villagers cannot afford anything. So I think that is the desperate at this moment, and that desperate has to be somehow turned into the opportunity by the city by the villagers.
No, I agree with you. And Professor Fang, if I may have a quick follow-up. Um, so I understand what you're saying, that the economic development also needs to follow into the villages. But for instance, if you have tourists coming to a village, they will need amenities because they are city folks, so to say. And those amenities will have to be provided at the level of the city. For instance, paved roads, vehicles, et cetera, et cetera. Do you perceive that might spoil the environment, or could somehow the rural environment be preserved from
Yeah.
the sustainability point of view?
Yeah, I think up to a certain extent, as I said, it is definitely a compromise somewhere. Every single village, not necessarily to have this similar kind of development model. So I actually work very closely with some villagers in Assam, in the world's largest river island called Majuli, in the widest river called River Brahmaputra. Comes from Himalaya all the way to Bay of Bengal, and that river flows through Assam, 17 kilometers wide river. So that island, when I was talking to the island community out there, so in fact, I just tried to empower a few people, saying that, look, what would you like to do for your village? What is your idea? Like, how can you modernize your village and say, for example, people, I bring 100 people from Australia, my friends, to come and stay in your village. What do you do? So, in fact, they came up with a very interesting blueprint and shown me how they like to see their village to be ready for the tourists and what they can offer. So, I think people have got the idea, they have got the knowledge, and they can bring something incredible. But we have never given that opportunity to those people in those settings. Now, not necessarily every single road needs to be paved, because if the some people because people will come from outside for the lifestyle change for a few days of good time. So security, safety, hygienity, these things are important. But if they are provided with a bicycle, for example, with a road, functional road, sometimes that can also work as well. I think, but again, the modality of every single village will be different. And then talking about one single village, then going to a bigger kind of block and then district, then the scale will change as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, for the questions, and thank you, Hemanta, for the answers. Very interesting. More comments from the floor? I think there's only a few minutes to go, so we allow one more questions, please.
Yeah, so we have got a question there from
Eunice, please.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Please, my name is Eunice, and I am a PhD candidate at the University of Washington in Seattle. And my research area is in smart cities and affordable housing. And during your presentation, you mentioned that the construction in smart villages were not up to a certain standard. And from some of the readings I've done as a student so far, I've seen research. Some researchers argue that the building materials used in most rural villages like wattle and daub and bamboos are very sustainable in terms of decarbonization. They are much more preferred to concrete structures. And so I am wondering, what would you recommend for smart villages in terms of the building construction and the building type, like the building materials to be used when considering decarbonization as an aim and sustainable development goals as an objective? What would be the ideal
Yeah, great question, Ines. Thank you for asking that question. I think what I understand that no doubt that people are doing very many different kind of research, looking at decarbonization options and housing typology and things like that. So no doubt there are lot more research going on. So what I have been making a point here is that the rural construction management as a practice is not quite prevailing. That practice, you cannot simply go out to any bookstore and then buy a planning book or housing book or construction management book for the rural. You don't have that option today, because those bits and pieces of research that people are doing in various dots in the various places have never been connected. So if you go to any bookstore and wanted to buy, for that matter, you just try to look at the journals and the conferences around us. So we are flooded with the journal papers and the conference proceedings and the books and so on. But how many of those outlets are giving you sufficient depths and breadth of rural construction? Not many. In India, perhaps I'm talking about India again, and perhaps talking about my own province, own state. There are 300 different tribes, and every single tribe lives in different housing, looking like all similar typology, but the functionality of those houses are different. We have not done the research. We have not collected that cultural sensitivity of their space to be able to design something for them as a house. It is not possible. So now question here is that the what you are asking in terms of sustainability and the solutions and all, they are there. People are doing lots of sustainability research, no doubt about it. But my point here is that the overall practice, overall literature hasn't been developed to inform the practice and the policy making at this moment. That is where the lacking knowledge is, and we need to really work collectively to make sure that that 40% people who are living in the rural pockets deserve the equal, if not more, literature to be able to work for them. Policies are around as literature. Policy practices are around that literature, and that is what the missing link today.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for the questions and the beautiful answers. Thank you, Hemanta. So the time is up. So I would like to, on behalf of all the participants, thank you, Hemanta, for your lecture. And this lecture was recorded and will be posted on the CIB website as one of the president's seminar series. So because the time we have only this time for the seminar, so many people who are interested in this topic will go to the website to look at the video. So maybe some of the participants or the who looked at the video will reach out to you for more questions.
Thank you.
All
Thank you,
right.
Professor Peng. Thank you for hosting us, hosting me. And this was a real honor to really give
Uh,
your very first presidential seminar. And I wish you all the best for your presidency. And we look forward to your World Congress in 2028, right?
Thank you. There's already a seat for you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and how your working commission will host one of the session during
Thank you very much.
during the World Building Congress in Beijing.
We will do that. Thank you.
Uh, yeah, so yeah, well, I'm very honored to host the first president's seminar for this term. So, Mark, would you like to say something?
Well, my dogs are running around in my study here, but so I hope they don't make any noise. But excellent presentation and an excellent start for the next series in the presidential seminar series. And you bring out very important points, Hemanta. And I hope that your seminar is heard by many people around the world, and that they carry that message forward. In because every community, every city has sister villages nearby, and so that symbiotic relationship needs to be built effectively. So I appreciate your thoughts and comments.
Yeah, that's good. No, thank you. This is a great platform. And I think I could not be any happier having two president president sitting on my side, either sides on my screen. So this is a great moment, really. And I think your incredible leadership, including Don Ward. I couldn't believe that everybody is there, and I think this is a platform that you are providing for many of the important talks to flourish here. So this is the first good opportunity that I have been given, for sure, that these thoughts are now campaigned a bit more widely through your incredible leadership. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Uh, Now it's the end of this this session. So May I propose to give a big proud to Hemanta for his excellent lecture. Thank you, Hemanta.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. This is now 1 a.m. I need to get
Oh
some sleep.
gosh. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you,
So,
Don. Nice to see you.
Thank
so
you.
Hemanta, have a very good morning. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a good morning for you.
Okay, this is the end of the session. Thank you all for your participation.